The car sat idling on a quiet Buffalo street just after sunrise. Keaira Bennefield was behind the wheel, wearing a bulletproof vest she had bought for protection, a stark and heartbreaking symbol of the fear that had come to define her days. 3 children sat in the back seat, their small faces reflecting a mix of routine tiredness and the lingering uncertainty that had become all too familiar in their young lives. A black SUV suddenly rammed her vehicle from behind with a jarring impact that shook the car. The driver got out, walked up deliberately, raised a gun, and fired. 1 shot to the head. The children screamed as their mother slumped forward, the horror unfolding in an instant that would scar them forever. Hours earlier, she had done something desperate and public. She had taken the evidence of what he was capable of and put it on Facebook for the world, and the authorities, to see. It was an act born of exhaustion, hope, and a final plea for someone, anyone, to finally take her situation seriously. Adam Bennefield was her estranged husband, and the man behind the violence. Keaira Bennefield, a mother of 3 trying to escape a nightmare marriage, had posted surveillance video of her estranged husband, Adam Bennefield, brutally beating her inside their home. She captioned it with raw honesty, "This is what this man does to me, but I'm always treated like I'm the abuser." The post was more than just a social media update. It was a digital cry for help, a documented record of terror that she hoped would break through the indifference or delays she had encountered before. The video captured moments of visceral violence, and sharing it publicly was her way of forcing accountability into the light. What happened next exposed cracks in the system that no one wanted to admit existed, revealing systemic gaps in how domestic violence cases are assessed, prioritized, and protected against escalation. Keaira and Adam's relationship had once seemed like a fresh start for both of them. She saw in him someone who understood struggle, hardship, and the possibility of redemption. He had a criminal past, but she believed love could change him, that their connection could be the foundation for something better. Friends later recalled how she spoke of their wedding day as one of the happiest moments of her life, describing the joy, the promises made, and the optimism that filled the air that day. But the reality quickly darkened as the months and years passed. Adam's control tightened gradually at first, then more aggressively. Jealousy turned to rage. Isolation became routine. What began as subtle manipulations, monitoring her movements, questioning her interactions, evolved into overt dominance that left her feeling trapped in her own home and life. On September 28, 2022, the violence escalated dramatically. Surveillance cameras inside the home captured Adam tackling Keaira, pinning her down, punching her repeatedly in a fit of uncontrolled fury. He displayed a knife and box cutter, preventing her from calling for help or escaping. She later told police she thought she was going to die during those terrifying minutes. The video was nearly 8 minutes of unrelenting terror, a clear visual record of physical assault, threats, and imprisonment that no one who viewed it could easily dismiss. Keaira didn't keep it hidden. She posted the footage on Facebook as a cry for help and accountability. The post spread quickly through shares and comments. People saw it. Local community members reacted with shock and support. Police were made aware of the video and the allegations. Adam was arrested on October 4th and charged with several misdemeanors: assault, menacing, harassment, unlawful imprisonment, criminal mischief. An order of protection was issued, intended to keep him away from her and the children. But the charges stayed low-level. Due to New York's bail reform laws at the time, which aimed to reduce pretrial detention for nonviolent or lower offenses, Adam was released on his own recognizance the same day. No cash bail required. He walked free with the order of protection in place, despite the disturbing nature of the evidence against him. The next morning, October 5th, Keaira was driving her children toward school, stopping briefly outside her mother's home on Shawnee Avenue in Cheektowaga. Adam appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. He rammed her car, approached on foot, and fired the fatal shot. Her children witnessed it all, their screams echoing as the unthinkable unfolded before their eyes. She was 30 years old, a young mother whose life was cut short in a moment of calculated violence. The investigation moved quickly in the aftermath. Adam was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, aggravated criminal contempt, and endangering the welfare of a child. Prosecutors highlighted his prior violent history. He had served 15 years in prison for an armed kidnapping involving an ex-girlfriend and another woman. This was not his first encounter with the justice system, and the pattern of behavior was evident to those reviewing the case. Court testimony painted a picture of escalating danger that Keaira had tried to document over time. Her daughter testified about the fear in the household, the tense atmosphere, and the ways the children had been exposed to the ongoing conflict. Friends and family described repeated attempts by Keaira to leave and the barriers she faced, emotional, logistical, and institutional. The Facebook post wasn't just a vent, it was evidence she hoped would force meaningful action from authorities and provide a layer of protection for herself and her children. Yet contradictions emerged in how the system responded. Police had the video. Keaira had given a detailed statement. Adam's history was known. Still, the initial charges didn't reflect the severity many saw in the footage. Bail reform, intended to address inequities in the justice system and keep non-dangerous individuals out of overcrowded jails, became a flashpoint in public discussion. Critics argued it failed to account for patterns of domestic violence where low-level incidents often predict lethal outcomes. Defenders pointed to implementation issues, the need for better risk assessment tools, and the importance of not over-incarcerating based on preliminary information. Adam's defense in trial attempted to portray complications and alternative interpretations of events, but the evidence was overwhelming. The timing of the attack, the method used, the witnesses in the car, and the clear premeditation suggested by his actions. In November 2024, a jury convicted him on all counts. In December 2024, he was sentenced to 25 years to life, bringing a measure of justice but no restoration for the family left behind. The hidden truth wasn't just one man's rage. It was how a public plea for help, backed by video evidence and a documented history, could still fall through the gaps in the system. Keaira had done everything visible, documented the abuse meticulously, sought charges, posted publicly for awareness, warned protection, and tried to navigate the legal protections available. The system that was supposed to act on that information treated the immediate threat as manageable rather than imminent. Reconstruction of events showed premeditation in the final act. Adam knew her routine, positioned himself strategically, and executed the attack in front of the children he claimed to care for. Psychologically, it fit established patterns of possessive control that turns lethal when the victim asserts independence and seeks to break free. Domestic violence experts note that the period when a woman tries to leave is often the most dangerous, with heightened risks of retaliation. Keaira's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Adam, the town of Cheektowaga, and police, alleging failures in response despite known risks and repeated warnings. In the end, her Facebook post became both her voice and a haunting question: what more does it take for someone to be believed and protected? The tragedy forces us to confront how often the warning signs are public, the evidence recorded on video, and still the unimaginable happens, because the response never fully matched the reality of the threat. In Keaira's final hours, she showed extraordinary courage by continuing to seek safety for her children and herself. The silence and systemic delays that followed her plea revealed something broken in how we protect the vulnerable from those who hunt them in the. If you want to uncover more dark truths and hidden histories, subscribe to FrameTale HQ, hit the notification bell, and leave your thoughts on this story in the comments below. Until next time, keep searching for the truth.